Tonight, the King 5 investigators exposed the state of Washington is in a self-described crisis, dealing with the biggest backlog in state history of mentally ill people sitting in jails waiting for legally mandated medical help.
In her new series, Mentally Ill Waiting in Jail, King 5's Susanna Frame reports the record-breaking wait times behind bars are creating chaos, suffering, and a massive financial toll for the state.
Sir, let me explain my expectations in the courtroom.
Over the last several months,
Your Honor, the suffering here is egregious.
our cameras were rolling
I have anxiety.
as a record number of defendants deemed incompetent to stand trial filed into court.
He has now been incarcerated 4 months.
People with mental illnesses so severe they don't understand the charges against them.
It looks to me like maybe you're hearing voices today. Am I right about that? Yeah.
We are asking the court to dismiss this case.
We saw defense attorneys routinely asking judges to throw out the charges
The defense is asking the court respectfully to dismiss the charges.
because their clients are sick and languishing in jail without mental health treatment for lengths of time never seen before in the state of Washington. Alexander J. of Seattle is one of those defendants.
The amount of time that Mr. J is being required to wait is barbaric.
In April, a judge found he was incompetent to stand trial and ordered he be sent to Western State Hospital in Steilacoom to try to get stabilized. The treatment's called competency restoration. The court ruled Jay needed to be out of jail and in the hospital within 7 days. But he's been waiting behind bars for more than 7 months.
It's unbelievable. You want it to be done.
Kim Hayes is one of Jay's alleged victims. A light rail security camera captured this random attack in March as she was going to work as a trauma nurse at Harborview. Her clavicle and ribs were broken, and she thought she could have been killed.
Can you characterize or put into words what this whole experience has done to you?
It has changed my life.
Kim says the state's delays are unacceptable for everyone.
I want to move on with my life, but I would move on quicker if we, for him, that resolution of getting him into an appropriate bed, an appropriate place.
You think you could heal faster?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
In a 2015 order, federal judge Marcia Peckman ruled the state is violating the constitutional rights of some of its most vulnerable citizens, that jails are not hospitals, and the mentally ill are being warehoused while they wait for services. Peckman ordered DSHS to provide inpatient treatment within 7 days of a judge ruling the help is needed. But that hasn't happened. Despite the judge's order and millions of extra dollars spent on resources, we found the state's wait times have gotten worse, not better. State records show in 2015, the average wait time for a bed at Western was less than a month. In 2022, that wait has shot up to 4 months and longer.
Would you ever have imagined that in 2022 we'd be in this place?
Absolutely not.
ACLU's legal director, LaRon Baker, was one of the attorneys on the case that led to the 7-day timeline.
I didn't think there was a universe in which a state agency would just really renege on their obligations. It's a real human tragedy.
A year after the federal court ruling, Judge Peckman railed against the state for not doing better, writing DSHS needed to stop the procrastination and false promises. She ruled the state in contempt and leveled fines for not meeting deadlines. From 2016 to 2018, that cost DSHS $88 million. After that, a settlement agreement put the fines on hold, but they're still accumulating. Records we've compiled show if it all has to be paid, the total bill would now be more than $300 million.
I put together this database.
Doctors Brian Wablinger and Thomas Kinlan are the state's top officials overseeing Western State Hospital.
That's the total. What do you think of that?
Unbelievable.
Would you say that the state is in a crisis?
A competency crisis for sure.
This has got to be difficult.
Oh, it's crushing. It's disheartening.
The doctors say this year the state was hit with a perfect storm, including the effects of COVID. After several shutdowns in hospital admissions, a backlog of cases are now coming through. Also, staffing is at historic lows. At Western State, about a quarter of the jobs are sitting unfilled.
I'm being subjected to solitary confinement.
And more than anything, they say there's a whopping increase in need. In the last year alone, Western saw demand for competency treatment skyrocket by 40%.
We knew ahead of time that services would be increasing over time. We knew that. What happened recently, we don't understand that. I don't think anyone expected that to happen.
DSHS is working to build new bed space. This project at Western State will add dozens of new spots next year. And they're building in Thurston and Clark counties, trying to decrease wait times for patients and decrease the likelihood of getting dragged back to court to pay the piled up fines.
We have to be fiscally mindful, and having to pay $300 million would be, that's the taxpayers' dollars. So of course it's concerning.
I am finding the department in contempt.
Judges are clearly fed up, saying the state's efforts aren't enough for defendants, taxpayers, and victims alike.
The delay imposed by the government is unconscionable, and it is inconsistent with the behavior of a civilized society. It is absolutely outrageous.
They've got to pay the price for not providing this, especially, human care to people who need it, this mental health care. The longer this process goes on, it does take away your belief in the system, and it affects so many people.
Tonight, the King 5 investigators exposed the human toll of a record number of people with serious mental illnesses sitting in our state's local jails waiting for court-ordered treatment.
As Susanna Frame reports in her series Mentally Ill, Waiting in Jail, keeping these defendants behind bars for months on end is both illegal and, according to researchers, amounts to an act of torture.
It's hard to think about because here you are in this confined box, and voices saying that we're going to, this is the end of your life. We'll let you know when we're going to kill you. The stuff and nightmares.
That sounds like the ultimate description of human suffering.
Yeah. Obviously, I did something wrong, or else I wouldn't be in there, but I didn't understand.
Did you even want to be living?
No. No.
I don't know how to quantify that type of horrific experience. If the department, he is essentially in a cage 23 hours a day, and the impact on his mental health is not lost on this court.
Ms. Johnson desperately needs medical attention, and each day that she spends compounds that harm.
I'm being subjected to solitary confinement in this jail without treatment.
I absolutely believe you and understand that you are suffering up in solitary. I absolutely believe that.
It's not just one of the worst, it is the worst place for a person to be who has a serious mental illness.
The worst, and
It can really cause irreversible brain damage. Basically, the longer that a person spends in untreated psychosis, the harder it is for them to return to the same level of functioning once they're actually receiving treatment again.
So it's a lot of resources, a lot of energy invested in trying to turn this number around, and unfortunately, we've not been successful in doing that.
We knew ahead of time that services would be increasing over time. We knew that. Can you predict, can you look into a crystal ball and predict exactly what's going to happen? No.
He got so much worse in jail. It added terror to horror. The system had plenty of time to figure out how to help him appropriately, and instead traumatized him, and his illness got worse. No one wants to believe that somebody that you love that deeply could ever experience what we went through. It is unbelievable what happened to my son. It's unbelievable.
Do you think your son could be alive today if he wouldn't have been incarcerated while he was so mentally ill?
Yeah. I believe that because of his incarcerations, he felt like he had been pushed to the bottom of society and discarded.
I'm pissed. Very, very angry about that. If you let people languish in the conditions of county jails for that long, I would consider that a crime against humanity.
Tonight, King County has taken legal action against the state of Washington for leaving mentally ill defendants in the county jail.
The county is asking the judge to fine the Department of Social and Health Services, DSHS, for the massive cost of housing defendants who are supposed to be cared for by the state. King 5 investigator Susanna Frame broke the story online today and has the latest.
A bystander caught this video of 54-year-old Beatrice Shariga bashing out restaurant windows in the U District in September, one of dozens of alleged crimes in the area that have landed him in the King County Jail over the years. On several occasions, judges have found Shariga seriously mentally ill, incompetent to stand trial, and ordered he get treatment at Western State Hospital. But in 3 cases in the last 2 years, Shariga didn't get a bed at Western State. Instead, he waited behind bars for help that never came, and then was let back out on the street.
It's extremely disturbing. I think it just creates so much fear.
Maureen Ewing is executive director of the University Heights Center, a nonprofit dedicated to enriching the neighborhood. But crime sprees by Shariga have terrorized their staff and patrons.
I think it makes us feel helpless and like we're on our own. and that we're not getting the support that we need. And clearly this person is not getting the support that they've needed for a decade.
This case is one of the reasons why King County filed a motion today saying at the King County Jail they're overloaded with mentally ill inmates.
Tonight, the King 5 investigators exposed.
The legal move comes on the heels of the King 5 investigation, mentally ill waiting in jail, where we've shown a record number of people across the state are stuck in local jails waiting for treatment in the hospital. And that's costing counties hundreds of thousands of dollars. In today's legal document, King County said it should be compensated for its losses and that the entire point of the county's motion is to get defendants out of the jail and into a hospital for the services that are needed. King County pointed to the case of Alexander J., a mentally ill defendant charged with 3 violent crimes, including this one, throwing a Harborview nurse down staircases at a light rail station in March. In April, a judge ordered Jay to go to Western State for treatment within 7 days. It's been over 7 months. Alexander J. is still waiting in jail.
And we certainly are not just standing idly by. We're working as hard as we can to get people in and fill beds.
DSHS officials say they will oppose the county's motion, that their hands are tied. The need at Western State Hospital has increased dramatically, and like the rest of the country, they're facing a staffing crisis.
We're adding capacity as fast as we can, but adding beds, building beds, unfortunately, takes time to do.
Baytrue Shariga was set to be released back to the streets this week, most likely headed back to the U District. Instead, the King County Prosecutor's Office refiled the most recent charges against him. He's back in jail, waiting again for help from the state of Washington.
We failed him. This isn't the first time that he's been in this situation, and he is unwell and he needs medical attention, and that is the crux of the problem.
So when I received the call Saturday, I was numb.
It was the place where Colonel High
on his competency restoration. I simply can't continue to hold him on the expectation that maybe someday they'll come pick him up. I do this with some reluctance as the charges against Mr. Hart are very serious and his motion to release is granted.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good day.
0 or 1 referrals from like 2015.
But yeah.
Hi.
The prejudice that
Sounds like, first of all, it's sort of unclear.
From director to, you know.
Okay, I don't have any paperwork for you today, but I
Rory and Sarah were my friends. We don't need to hear that God wanted another angel. That's not helpful.